All right, so we're going to talk about a question I get asked daily that quite frankly frustrates the shit out of me. And it's, how much volume do you need to build muscle as a natural lifter? So I largely blame the evidence-based community for getting people to focus so much on sets per muscle group and focus on volume and the precise amount of volume you need to build muscle, because really it's just a big distraction from what actually is going to build your physique when you're a drug-free lifter, which is getting strong. It's building up to lifting impressive weights across a handful of big major compound exercises. It all comes back to the fundamental principle of drug-free physique building, which is that if you want to build a great physique, you have to pick a handful of big major compound lifts that work a lot of muscle in your body that you can master and get as strong as possible at over time. That's what's going to build your physique. So this whole obsession with volume is absolutely absurd. And people are training with way too much volume because of the evidence-based community, because they're constantly reviewing studies, trying to pinpoint what's the precise amount of volume you need to build muscle, what's the optimal amount of volume. And it's caused people to neglect the more important areas of their fitness routines. If people focused exclusively on just getting strong at a handful of big major compound exercises, if they focused on delivering the right amount of effort, if they focused on staying consistent, eating proper nutrition, sleeping, resting properly, then we wouldn't have a lack of muscle mass. But everyone is spinning their wheels as a result of following these studies, of following the evidence-based community, saying 10 to 20 sets per muscle group is optimal. And I would fucking bury myself to the ground if I trained with that much volume, if I was focused on primarily adding strength to my lifts, adding, progressive poundages on my mainstay compound lifts. I would bury myself to the ground with that amount of volume. And the result of all of this is that everyone is weak, everyone is underdeveloped. And I know a lot of guys personally who treat the evidence-based community and their information like it's gospel, and they're weak, they're underdeveloped. Sure, maybe they're getting a nice pump in the gym, maybe they're hitting the optimal sets per muscle group, maybe they're hitting all the right angles, but they're fucking weak and underdeveloped, because that much volume is absolutely absurd for a drug-free lifter who's focused on getting strong. And so I throw out this example all the time, but say you're benching 135 pounds for 5 reps right now, and in a year's time, you're still benching 135 pounds for 5 reps. Do you think it matters that you hit 20 sets for your chest, or you hit, 4 different angles for your chest? Of course not, because you have not gotten any stronger. You haven't achieved progressive poundages. And so it does not matter. This is all secondary. And while volume is a driver of muscle growth, it's not the primary driver of muscle growth. We've known for a long time now that it's mechanical tension, it's getting strong, it's progressive overload. This is the primary driver of your physique development. And while volume plays a role, it doesn't play the primary role. So to put volume on this pedestal and to pretty much exclusively focus on it and treat your training as slots and thinking that, hey, if I hit this 10 to 20 sets per muscle group range, then I'm going to put on the muscle, then automatically the muscle is going to come on. Because this is what a lot of people think, and I get this question, probably more than once a day at this point. How many sets per week do I need? I'm like, you're focused on the wrong fucking thing. You should be focused on, how do I get stronger? How do I consistently produce progressive poundages on my mainstay compound lifts? And of course, if you're going in the gym once a week and you're doing one heavy rep for each muscle, of course you're not going to stimulate muscle growth. So there is a minimum of volume that's needed, but it's a lot less than you've been led to believe. It's a lot less than you've been led to believe. I've actually made incredible progress with just 2 to 3 sets per muscle group every week. And guess why? It's because my focus was put into progressive poundage. I was getting stronger. I was training it with intensity. My recovery was on point. You can train long or you can train hard. You cannot do both. There's a trade-off when it comes to intensity versus volume. And the trade-off that's almost always going to be more productive is choosing the intensity routes, choosing the effort over quantity. Because sure, some people can make high volume training work, but the only reason they can make it work is because they train like pussies. They leave so many reps in the tank. If you're leaving reps in the tank, sure, you can do a ton of different fucking sets. You can do all this volume because you're training like a wuss. You're never actually pushing close to failure. And for example, assuming that there are 5 quality reps in every set, and let's take someone who's training like a puss, and they leave 4 reps in the tank on a given set. They would need 15 total sets to stimulate the same amount of growth that they could have done in 3 sets training close to failure. And which do you think is more conducive for long-term results for a natural lifter? Obviously the less is more route. Obviously the 3 sets trained intensely, because too many sets is going to become fatiguing. It's going to cause a natural lifter to overtrain. And that's the fundamental problem with all of this. So focusing so much on the volume is completely the wrong mentality. It's completely the wrong mentality. You shouldn't think of your training as slots. First and foremost, if you were to take a handful of big compound lifts and you were to progressively get stronger at them over time, and you were to do so in a medium rep range, and you were to use good form consistently, without focusing on counting the number of sets per muscle group, you would gain muscle. I will bet you my left nut, you will pack on muscle. because you're focused on progressive overload. You're focused on achieving progressive poundages. So if you guys wanted a general guideline for volume, because I know a lot of you asked me this fucking question, so I'm just gonna say it. Here's a general guideline, okay? And I'm gonna first start by saying that I've gotten away with much less than this. As I said, 2 to 3 sets per week. I've made incredible progress on that. But a general guideline, the upper limit could be 2 to 3 hard sets, taken very close to failure. With pretty much all the reps you could possibly squeeze out performed in each set. 2 to 3 hard sets twice every 7 to 10 days in that kind of 5 to 15 rep range. And that will solve all your volume problems. And that comes out to roughly 4 to 6 weekly sets. And that is more than enough. I've gone away with much less than that. And what most people tend to forget nowadays, and this is a big fucking problem, is that you grow outside of the gym. You grow when you're resting, when you're recovering, when you're eating proper nutrition, when you're sleeping. You don't grow in the gym. So to go in the gym and throw all this volume and all this complicated shit is completely going to destroy your progress, because you're not training within your ability to recover. You always need to train within your ability to recover. You could do 20 sets per muscle group, but if you can't recover from it, you're not getting any bigger. If you can't recover and grow back stronger from that, you're not going to get any bigger. And this is the problem. And this is why I promote such a low volume approach, because, full disclosure, I've tried different shit. I've tried the high volume routines. If you go to the beginning of my blog, when I started the Polarity Fitness website, I was talking about this. I was talking about hitting that kind of 10 to 12 sets per muscle group range. And I always come back to what I teach on this channel. I always come back to this very low volume approach, this low volume, high intensity approach with a low frequency. Because I've tried focusing on the sets per muscle group, and what happened was my focus was diluted. The poundage progression, adding strength to my lifts, it took a back seat, quite frankly. It took a back seat, and my focus was diluted. I wasn't focused on getting strong. And my recovery wasn't quite as good. Sure, I was hitting the right amount of sets because some science-based guy said so, but my lifts were not improving and my physique was not improving as a result. So I've always found, no matter how much volume I do, if I'm not getting stronger, if I don't see the right amount of strength gain every month on my key exercises, the muscle does not come, no matter how much volume I do, no matter what angles. Because truly, I've tried all of this bullshit. I've tried what the evidence-based community says to, be optimal, but it does not fucking work. It does not work. And most people are evidence-based followers, and most people are spinning their wheels as a result, because people have been grossly misled. People have been grossly misled into thinking focus on the volume, focus on hitting a certain amount of sets per muscle group, and that's when you're going to see the best results. But no, you're going to see the best results when you have a handful of big major compound exercises in your routine that work well for you, and you master them. You get as strong as possible at them. Every week you try and add a rep here, you add a rep there, you add some weight here. That's what's going to produce the physique you're after. So you have to get out of the volume mindset. This is one of the biggest killers of people's progress. It's never about monitoring the amount of sets you do per muscle group. It's about having a handful of lifts, progressively getting stronger at them over time. As I said, you can train long or you can train hard. You cannot do both. And training hard with a lower volume, bringing a higher quality to a reduced amount of time is going to always be better. Always, because it's going to favor your recovery. If you can get away with a high volume routine, it's because you're training like a pussy and you're not bringing effort. 2 to 3 sets per week. That's what I've made really good gains on. And it's because I train fucking hard. I bring a lot of intensity. I bring a lot of effort into every set. I tap into a certain mindset. And most people don't have that mindset. And that's why some people can get away with making, gains. And it's, obviously not as much gains as they can make following a lower volume routine, but they can make some sort of progress following a high volume routine because they're not pushing close to failure. And that's the fucking problem. So that's truly this video for you guys, man. I truly impress upon you to start taking things with a grain of salt. All this evidence-based information, it comes with a lot of bullshit. Not all science is of equal value. That's the fact of the matter. A lot of these studies are largely misrepresented. They have a ton of shortcomings, and it's truly not a reliable source of information. We can't rely on theory to tell us how the fuck to train. As I said, if I followed these science-based guidelines, it's 10 to 20 sets per muscle group, I would bury myself to the motherfucking ground. And when I was doing it, I was not achieving progressive poundages. I was not getting stronger, and therefore my physique wasn't developing. And that's just the truth, guys. It's truly that simple. It's all about recovery. It always comes back to recovery, because your recovery is limited when you're a drug-free lifter. You need to set up everything in your training. Everything always comes back to what allows you to produce progressive poundages on your mainstay lifts. That's all it comes down to. Not about monitoring the volume. Fuck that. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And I fucking tried it. And that's why I'm so gung-ho about the things I teach. I'm not one of those, fitness creators who's all over the fucking place. I don't tell you, this can work and this can also work. It's like, no, this is how it's fucking done. The Polarity Fitness philosophy is number one, man. And especially when it comes back to not living in the fucking gym. Who the fuck wants to live in the gym, guys? Come on. We're not bodybuilders. If you follow Polarity Fitness, you're not someone who's into that bodybuilding mindset, that bodybuilding lifestyle. You're someone who wants to master all the key areas of life. You're someone who wants to, yes, be in great shape, have that going for them, but also focus on all the other key areas of life, because there's no point in being in great shape if the rest of your life's in fucking shambles. And if you're living in the gym, you're this fitness nerd, it's not fucking cool, guys. It's not fucking cool. So not only is what I teach with the Polarity Fitness philosophy, the training approach, you know, the nutrition approach, everything, not only is it the best for making drug-free progress, this is how you train and this is how you approach fitness as a drug-free lifter. Not only that, but you're actually going to have more time to put to the other areas of your life. You're going to be a more well-rounded person. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. Make sure to pick up my free 13-point natural muscle building checklist if you haven't already, and we'll talk soon.